I'm a technical lead for Transport for the South East. I'm a transport planner, and I'm proud of that. And I know we've got lots of transport planners in the room today, which is a good thing. So I'm just a bit of an introduction to the death by PowerPoint you're going to be subjected to in a moment on terms of what we're up to in terms of developing our transport strategy. But just in terms of a bit of context for this very important piece of an exciting piece of work, because there are a number of challenges. It presents us with a number of challenges in terms of, as Rupert said, going back to the legislation. What does the legislation tell us to do? Well, it tells us to develop a transport strategy that will set out how we can facilitate economic growth. So yeah, what's new? That's what you'd expect a transport strategy to do. But there are a number of key challenges that we face, because I certainly, as a transport planner, have had to have a bit of a change my mindset, because we're now looking at transport in a much bigger context. It's not transport for transport's sake anymore. This is all about transport in the bigger context of economic growth. And we were having a debate at our last joint STB meeting, saying really we're all being called sub-national transport bodies, but really we're doing something. It's not about transport. This is about regeneration, economic growth. We're working in a very different, bigger context. So the work that we're going to do on the transport strategy, there's a bigger picture that we're trying to, and a bigger agenda that we're trying to meet here. So one of the points that Rupert made about the context for this, very much need to focus on the South East as a place and make the case for investment in this as a location, looking at it from a regional context, and picking up on Rupert's point about the siloed nature of transport investment, and that need, by looking at this regionally, to be able to join some of those investment programs together to create some outcomes that create more from the same amount of investment. And that's a key challenge. We've also got the fact, so we're talking about transport, but there's this whole transport land use development conundrum, which is always kind of out there. That struggle that we always, that we face about that, at the moment, transport investment tends to be development led, leading, as we know, to significant suboptimal outcomes of piecemeal development here, there and everywhere, transport system trying to catch up, and everyone getting really kind of fed up with that whole thing. So there is an opportunity here, working within the context of the local planning regime, but looking out to 2050, if we were more creative in the way that we thought about transport investment, and thought more from a, how can we facilitate development, from a transport-led development approach, what would that look like? Because there's no one else operating in this sphere, so it's something that we need to broach. And a key theme for us in the South East, as Rupert showed you the slide of the transport network, we have a very dense transport network in the South East. Okay, it's all primarily radial to London, but we have the basic kind of network in there. So a key theme for us, compared to maybe some of the other STBs, Martin included, rather than banging on about we need a tunnel under the Pennines, or we need a major motorway investment, or we need a new railway line, or a new orbital motorway, very much I think the theme for us is going to be how can we make better use of what we already have, rather than significant investment in large-scale new infrastructure. So I'm not saying there won't be some civils works out of this for those people who are from, there's something, there's skin in the game here. There will be something, but it's likely to be those interventions which are going to deliver or unlock capacity in particular locations, rather than whole-scale sort of building of new infrastructure. I mean, the strategy might say something different, but that's my sense in going into it. So making better use of what we have is going to be a key theme. The other kind of issue that Rupert touched on that I just want to come back to before you see is the future, and how we deal with the future. But how do we deal with the future very much in when we're developing a transport strategy? You've got this whole kind of thing that we get into this words demand forecasting. So you'll see when Edmund comes to present, we're trialling something relatively new, going down a scenario planning approach, which is sort of an emerging thinking about how you should, when you've got a very uncertain future, how you should go, but trying something new, a different way of looking at the future, and seeing what it looks like, and seeing what that means for the actual numbers on the network. But there's also, obviously, going back to my point about making better use of what we have, the future And this whole future of mobility and future transport technology does present for us, particularly as an STB, a way of delivering on that objective of making better use of what we have. So a key challenge for us is, in this new space of future of mobility, how can we grasp that, if it is possible to grasp it, and try and sort of drive it in a way that's going to work for us, rather than just, as at the moment, seems to be a little bit, well, we'll let the market dictate what kind of happens, and we'll see where we are in 10 years' time and keep our fingers crossed that it looks a lot better. So kind of a key issue to sort of struggle with is how can we grasp this future mobility and try and drive it in a way that's going to deliver some outcomes that meet the objectives of the transport strategy. So what we're going to hear about in the moment is the first, we're talking about a transport strategy, but it's one of three components that we're looking at to get to a place where we say to government, this is what we think needs to happen in the South East to deliver on this core objective. So we've got a transport strategy, which Edmund's going to talk you through. We then got some corridor studies, so we're kind of developing a methodology to do a bit more of a deep dive on some of those economic corridors that Rupert showed on the slide. So that will come as a second component. And once we've got the transport strategy, those corridor studies, we will then have a strategic investment plan, which will be our statement of what infrastructure we need, or initiatives, I say infrastructure, initiatives that we think should be developed within the South East to deliver on that core objective of delivering economic growth.